So we're gonna be doing Paris Fashion Week today, and let me just warn you, this is gonna be a long video. We have an insane number of collections to go through, and each is better than the other. We have some amazing brands to cover, but also there are some sort of interesting collections that we just need to talk about. I think Paris Fashion Week this season is very interesting, and I have to say most of the collections like really delivered, and that is why it makes it so much more fun to just sort of go through them. And yeah, let's get started. So we are gonna start with Dries Van Noten because this was one of the strongest collections this season. In fact, might I say this was one of the strongest displays of creative directions that I've seen. Julian Klausner has been doing God's work at Dries Van Noten, and this collection is just proof. There was so much to love here. There was so much opulence, the sort of colors, the sort of techniques, the textures, the prints. Of course, Dries Van Noten and prints need to go hand in hand. He really delivered with these sort of silhouettes. They have this sort of almost cultural, ambiguous culture feel to it, which is kind of interesting. We have some gorgeous, I think the pixel effect and this sort of surreal pixel motif was definitely a standout, and I think it was the most memorable part of this collection. We had this like really gorgeous embroidery and beadwork over here. This collection was a lot about texture. As you can see, there are an endless number of fabrics and textures that have just been mishmashed together, and somehow they end up looking insanely elegant. I mean, we have, let's just take any look. We have so many. We have this sort of very traditional varsity jacket collar. We have this beautifully floral embroidered coat. We have a very intense blue skirt. We have this sort of jacquard fabric here. We have these python boots. They have the sort of Renaissance-ish print here. There's a lot going on. Like, look at this gorgeous. It looks like a painting that, it just is not loading on your laptop. Klossner really understands the importance of details, and Reese has always been a lot about details, and he has like really captured that energy. And the collection began with familiar language of school uniforms, toggle coats, blazers, shirts and ties, and all that very neat and clean looks. But the order didn't last. Soon the look started sort of loosening up. Plaids came, denim pieces, a lot of embroidery and beads like we saw. And in fact, the pixelated motifs were inspired by Flemish still life paintings. The color palette here is just divine. It's so rich. It has like reds, bronzes, a lot of, it's very deep dark color palette. It feels very regal. It feels very lush, but it still has that sort of youthfulness. It doesn't feel stuffy or conservative in any way, which I think is a really, and especially when we talk about most of the fabrics and sort of prints that he's used do lean towards a more conventional aesthetic, but he's like really managed to make them cool. This look is so desi coded, it's so South Asian, it's so Indian. It just looks like a lot of sari borders that have been stitched together. What really works here is a very strong balance between a lot of things versus some very minimal things. Julian has been thriving in at Dries Van Noten, and this collection is just proof of that. I think a very solid collection. And it's time for my favorite look. Okay, this is very difficult because I do want to choose one of these pixelated looks, but I also love these like embroidered looks, and I'm also kind of obsessed with this skirt. But I do think I'm gonna choose this gorgeous pixelated coat. Yeah, it's a masterpiece. That skirt again is beautiful, and I love that it's not fully pixelated. It just has this thing over here, kind of beautiful. Okay, let's move on to the next collection. Now we are talking about Chanel. Oh my god, I actually didn't plan the order, so I'm pleasantly surprised that the second collection is Chanel. Chanel was beautiful. Matthew has been doing God's work at Chanel, and he has like really delivered on the concept of what Chanel should be in the future. I think he really understands sort of the current relevance and the sort of revamp that Chanel needed. He really understands why people love Chanel, and I think he also really understands why people who may not see themselves in the brand, who of course might be familiar with the brand because everyone knows Chanel, but they might not see themselves at that brand, but he makes it relevant. He has really captured the relevance of the current market and the current generation, which is, I think, and he's maintained Chanel's legacy, heritage, and brand codes and design language and style aesthetics while doing all of that. So I think that's a remarkable feat. And Chanel is, some might say Chanel is a very easy brand to design for because it has such a strong set of codes. But the pressure to be a creative director for Chanel, I believe, would be unbeatable. This collection feels like a love letter to the house. This collection was inspired by Coco Chanel's famous quote about fashion being both a caterpillar and a butterfly. He decided to build a collection around the concept of transformation. Clothes that like work for everyday life, clothes that just sort of feel more magical. They have like this sort of statement piece vibe to it, but they are of course something you're wearing day to day. There are a good number of really simple Chanel pieces, like Chanel suits, but when you look at them, you realize they're anything but simple. The silhouettes, and Matthew has been doing it for a while. The silhouettes at Chanel now feel so much more relaxed. They feel so much more fluid, and he has like really found an interesting way to sort of update the Chanel woman. There were very clear nods to Chanel's history, especially in the 1920s, like the massively dropped waist, pleated skirts, elongated proportions appeared throughout the collections. Belts were like really down low. Let me try to find a look for you which has that like amazingly dropped waist here. Like, oh my god, just look at that, is gorgeous. Like, look at the belt. That's pretty cool. And as the show sort of went on to the butterfly side of it, fabrics just became shinier, just, they just became more lighter, more dramatic. And these three looks insanely gorgeous. They have this sort of iridescence to it. Embroidery just shines. There's so much artistry here. There's such a freshness, youthfulness, girliness to it without making it seem, juvenile in any way. Look at this gorgeous Chanel suit. It's just like the detail on that. That's I'm shocked that this is not couture. VC metallic, that's also gorgeous. Look at these layered Chanel jackets. He, and more than just sort of honoring Chanel's heritage, he's also like really sort of expanding the brand language. He's making it seem more conversational, more chill. And it's almost impossible not to fall in love with Chanel now. Chanel has been like really killing it for the last couple of seasons. Like, started with the I think Subway was Matthew's second collection, but even the first collection was amazing. The Subway collection changed lives, and you might think I'm exaggerating, but trust me, I'm not. It did that. I mean, look at this gorgeous. It's so insane. Like, you can see that drop waist little reference here. The details on this are like nothing short of genius. I think you can see why Anna Wintour said that he might be the next Karl Lagerfeld, because he just has vision, which is, very important at a time like this when luxury is almost floundering. Luxury fashion is floundering. But yeah, I can go on this conversation forever. Let's move on to the next collection. So next collection we have, it's Zimmermann was insanely beautiful this season. They had these very gorgeous scarf dresses. I just cannot get over them. These are pretty beautiful. They have like a lot of ruffles. Zimmermann has always had just delicious dresses. They are the king of resort wear. They're the king of sort of tropical wear. Dresses you just want to run dresses you just want to wear and just run across the beach during sunset. They had those kind of looks, but I do really appreciate how they're sort of expanding their vocabulary to more daywear looks. Though I like love a good Zimmermann look. There's this one dress that they did last season. It was this ombre dress and I will just never forget it. It's just burned in my brain. It was just like ombre chiffon dress. It was just a classic. They had that in blue as well, but that Zimmermann dress burned in my brain. But this collection was really cool. So it was inspired by these sort of rule-breaking women in 1920s Australia, like women who just did that jobs were not meant for women, like being a lifeguard or just sort of like literally driving across the country. There was a good amount of deconstruction here, deconstruction that felt very feminine. There was some very good layering moments here. The clothes as Zimmermann are often described as pretty, which I just did, but this lineup showed that there's a lot going on underneath. It's nice to see that they're sort of evolving away from their more dainty feminine looks. How much ever I love them, I think they're really sort of focusing on the more substance part of it. I think they're like really doing femininity well without making it just feel like a cliche or making it feel small. Yes, they were deeply girly clothes, but they were strong. I mean, just look at this leather look. This is a very powerful look. It's all leather, though I think you would sweat like a dog in this, but it's just insane. The shades are so cool. There are some fur moments which I was kind of surprised by, but I really love the sort of spirit and the movement that these dresses carry. So now it's time to pick my favorite look. And by the way, Zendaya wore this, which is, of course, I mean, it's Zendaya approved. So just take whatever you'll do with that info. Oh my god, my favorite look is definitely the scarf dress. It was the opening look. It's beautiful. It's a classic Zimmermann scarf. I love the little Australian map references here. You can like literally see Australia is written here. It's a beautiful dress. It's very Zimmermann, but I feel it's just very on collection, very on brand. It has story. I love it more for that. I forgot to do the Chanel favorite look. I don't actually. It's good that I forgot, but I don't think I could ever choose. But let me just go back and do it. Oh my god, it's definitely this one. I am loving these sort of vividly colored looks that Matthew has been doing, and I love this one. This like instant answer. But yeah, now let's move on to McQueen. Oh my god, so McQueen. McQueen was a lot about sort of cinema and archives and all of that. Like Sean McGirr has been at McQueen for a few seasons now, and you can see the sort of direction that he's trying to build, but I don't know if I agree with it or if I feel that's the right one. He sort of looked at cinema here, especially Todd Haynes' film Safe. The reference shaped the show's central idea, the tension between perfection and paranoia in a world where everything and everyone just feels constantly watched. The mood that came through, this was like, it was there. It felt, the collection felt very retro, it felt very 60s somehow. The clothes balance that sort of darker, more insane concept with pieces that felt approachable. I would say that some of the pieces here were very approachable, and approachable is just my more pleasant and digestible word for a commercial collection, which I know brands need to do, but from a brand like Alexander McQueen, who that has been built on theatrics, drama, fantasy, like almost couture, like magical work and concepts and sort of an execution as well, and who has been commercially successful. I think it's sort of a little heartbreaking to see to see looks that can easily be sort of copied by a fast fashion brand without a second thought. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen something like this on Shein, and I know that's a big sort of insult to McQueen. I don't mean it to be, but I know it's bias cut. It has panels. It's beautifully designed. The neckline. I know the amount of effort that it takes, but I just mean it's not giving McQueen. Some of the looks are very pretty. I mean, this dress is cute. It actually reminds me of this Alexander McQueen look I saw. This one reminds me of a very Sara Burton ish look. There are some good pieces, but there's no story. There's no cohesiveness. There's no drama. There's no fantasy. And I know not every brand needs to be fantastical, but I mean, it's McQueen, it's Alexander McQueen, so I feel like we deserve that. And some of the clothes were just like, this dress is gorgeous, but why is it styled so badly? Like, this piece itself is amazing. This sort of neck sleeve piece, I don't know what's called, I'm sorry, but it's insane. I think the styling is also ruining it. This piece can be it could have been like the standout moment of the collection, like this, with like a really sort of nudist, almost naked look. There is so much potential for these looks to be styled so much better. I think styling is what is killing it. I mean, you're ruining the mask with that cape. This dress is beautiful, but again, it's ruined. But I feel the problem is not skill set. It's just sort of execution, styling, direction. And I think if they just improve on that, I think they can still deliver much better collections. Okay, so now let's move. Favorite look, shit. I think I'm gonna go with this because that is a gorgeous dress. You cannot lie. That's a beautiful white sheer lace dress. I love it, but I would never wear this together. But this look it does have two beautiful pieces, so I love it for that. Okay, so now let's move on to Miu Miu. I have to say it, unfortunately, it was sort of disappointing. I don't know what is going on here. It felt too much like Prada. I mean, in Prada, I've always sort of walked that line, but this was Prada. This was too Prada. It was too mature. There was no fun. There was no energy to it. It was always thrived on that certain girly, playful, chaotic energy. But this time it was very calm. Like, I get calm, but this was just too, and in a way. The collection was built around a simple idea: the smallness of the human body compared to the vastness of the world. It sounds abstract, but it translated into rather simple clothes, as you would expect this concept to end up. I think the concept is beautiful, but I think it could have also been explored in an exact opposite way, where the clothes were more, they were saying more in response to how big everything around is, but this was a more restrained approach. The wardrobe leaned into familiar shapes that felt very easy to recognize. There were like 70s style trouser suits, pencil skirts, very simple shirts. The color palette was very classic, I might say, neutral classic, black, gray, camel. There was a little bit of burgundy here, but I think it was a very stable collection. I think it might sell well. They have this sort of new grungy aesthetic to it, almost sort of disheveled aesthetic that Prada has been doing a lot Prada is sending out dirty sort of cuffs on the runway. I think definitely they have taken that from Prada, but I feel that this is just not new. Fabric, of course, like I said, like they have been distressing and manipulating things a lot, and that is done by a lot of fabric. Like, sort of, look at this, like, sort of washed cotton poplin, this linen, sort of cashmere that sort of looks like worn in. Where was that? Yeah, like, just like, look at this. It just does not look fresh. And oh my god, if is it just me or this bow looks like extremely cheap? It looks like a fast fashion bow, which is, I know it's traumatizing that I'm saying that. But I have to say the hats were kind of fun. Outerwear is where I think the personality sort of came through. The bags were really cute too. Like, that is a cute bag. And that fur bag is pretty nice. And I will say the heels, they are gorgeous. Like, these sort of color poppy heels, like, are really just sort of speaking to me. Even these shoes are beautiful. I think Miu is doing well with accessories, and I mean, in the end, that's what sells, right? So I get that, but I think the collection just could have used so much more jazz and fun. I think this collection was like really not about sort of making a statement. Maybe it was more of a palette cleanser for the brand, but I feel that, yeah, we could have expected more. So my favorite look, shit, that's actually pretty difficult. I'm struggling to find a favorite look. Not that I don't like anything, but it's just everything feels like it's saying the same thing, if that makes sense. I think I'm gonna go with one of these, maybe like this sort of black, all black leather suit or something. I think this is something I'll go for. But yeah, I think for expect done more. I think we have high expectations. Now we have Louis Vuitton. Oh my god. So I know a lot of people hate this collection, and I get why they do that. I mean, Nicola has been doing some rather experiential sort of, almost just sort of like fuck you work, because he knows that the bags are making money. He's one of the only few designers in the industry right now who has insane amount of complete freedom to do whatever he wants. He's been the creative director at Louis Vuitton for, I think, more than a decade. He is not, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Louis Vuitton is the cornerstone of the fashion industry, commercially and creatively. And we all know Nicola is a brilliant designer. His tenure at Balenciaga was immaculate. He has put out some amazing work at Louis Vuitton. And now he's just sort of doing anything that he wants. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think this is a really fun collection. And I think we really need to sort of appreciate collections more that are just sort of out there doing whatever. I think, I remember posting about this as well, that how Louis Vuitton is doing ugly chic so well. I know that's a concept that Prada pioneered, ugly chic, but I think Louis Vuitton has like really captured the essence of that. And I don't even think that the clothes are ugly. I just feel that they do, like, they do lack a certain sort of storytelling angle to it, but it just feels a little strange, it feels a little chaotic, but it just comes together so beautifully. It feels like a guilty pleasure liking Louis Vuitton collection. I know this is the kind of collection that would divide people instantly. You either love it or you absolutely hate it, but that tension is so interesting. He's a designer who just refuses to stay in one lane, someone who's constantly experimenting, and I think we just need to appreciate it for that, because even at the helm of such a big brand, he's the kind of creative freedom he's getting is interesting. And while you may agree or disagree with the output, I think I just like really like the fact that he is doing that. I think it's expressive, it's imaginative, and it's completely its own, which is interesting. This collection, now talking about this collection, was a lot about protection, texture, structure, and it was inspired a lot about sort of communities across the world and what they wear, and he sort of reinterpreted it, these garments that people wear in the mountains, through his lens, through his very like avant-garde high fashion lens. And this show sort of made them more fantastical and dramatic. There were like a lot of a plethora of fabrics. There was like wool, shearling, a lot of fur, and the silhouettes were like massive. Like, almost every silhouette just engulfs you, which I think makes sense because, of course, fall collection and mountain communities are, of course, gonna wear like really heavy woolen clothes that are just going to protect them. And I just love qualities coming through. But there's this, like, the silhouettes are just so fun. He's just like really captured the essence of the cultural context that the collection tried to emulate, and also added his own. Like, this dress is beautiful. I mean, and again, if you look at these sort of almost corset looks, like this puffer corsetish jacket, this again, this very wool trimmed corset skirt, I think the pieces are beautiful. This jacket is a classic. If you buy a jacket like that, you're gonna wear it all your life. But I will say there was a lot happening visually. I do understand why it might seem overwhelming, and it might feel a little out of place and it might feel like a mishmash, but I do see that Why people might think like that, but I definitely love it. And the closing looks again were gorgeous. They were so dramatic. Like, look at that neckline. That's drama. That's beautiful. There's this one look, I can't find it, which actually was really bad. I think I've missed to put it. But yeah, that was really bad. I just wanted to show you that, but fuck it. So my time for my favorite look, I know what it is. It's this gorgeous dress. I love the neckline. I just think it's so fun. I love the way that the sleeves are sort of getting more bigger towards the end. The length of the dress is perfect. It's just so easy to style. You can still wear a coat under it. I think it's a very over it. I mean, and you can just imagine this with like a maybe like a funky colored stockings. There's a lot of styling potential. So I love this dress. So now we are talking about Balmain. This was Anton and Tron's debut collection. It was actually good. I won't say that it was groundbreaking or it was just, insane. It did remind me a lot of the Balmain army that we used to have in 2016-17. I think it was a really good collection. It just captured that Balmain essence really beautifully. And I really do like the fact that he used this collection to sort of keep it like a transitional thing. I think we're going to see some really good work from him. He's obviously a talented designer. You can see it in the way that he's already interpreted the house codes and the design language. I do feel this was more of an introductory show. I feel that this was a return to sort of a more structured Balmain, a more crisp Balmain. And he sort of looked back to the early years of Pierre Balmain, especially the late 1940s, where the brand sort of emerged first after post-war Paris. He studied the archives closely and translated that era's like sort of restrained glamour into something more modern. His idea of like this minimal opulence defined the whole show. Like I said, there was a strong sense of structure throughout, sculptural shoulders, sharp tailoring. There was like a lot of cool jackets. The silhouettes were very strong. There was a sort of almost sort of like military edge to it. But he did add like some really soft, feminine draped looks. Like, look at this dress, that's beautiful. And look at that. I mean, the way that it just sort of falls down and becomes something so much more softer is beautiful. And this again, like a very classic gown. I love how it's just ruffling off into French. It did feel cinematic in a way, this collection. But I do feel I'm definitely looking forward to what the designer is going to put out next, because this was, like I said, not groundbreaking. And I do feel that Balmain has so much potential to just, and Balmain has such a strong brand and identity that you can like really play around with it. Some brands don't have that luxury of just sort of playing around with it. They are maybe too restrained, and if you deviate too much, they just might look like a different brand. But Balmain is so strong in its sort of energy that you have the luxury to sort of really sort of build a completely new aesthetic, and you can still retain that. So I'm really looking forward to how it's going to shape that. But I think this collection was a solid debut. And it's a debut, so I think debuts are either like insanely different or they are sort of a transitional thing, and I appreciate it for what it is. He understands the house DNA. He's also simplifying it, and looking forward to what he does next. So I think it's a good one. Favorite look. I forget every time. Should I just stop doing that? I literally forget every time. My favorite look, I actually am gonna choose this green dress. I love the color. I love how it has that energy, this 80s power shoulder. I love the way it's draping down. It's very sexy. The slit is insanely high. I love the sort of scarf choker thing. I think it's a beautiful look, so I'm gonna choose this. Okay, so now we're moving to Saint Laurent. My god is waiting for this. I'm in love with YSL, and I'm always gonna call it YSL. I don't care what you think. Anthony Vaccarello has been doing brilliant, genius work. I'm just in love with his direction, his creative direction, the way that he's so focused, so clear on what he wants, what he wants the brand to look like, what he wants his woman to look like. It's just beautiful. His sort of thought process and his sort of control over the creative direction, like how he's so restrained but he says so much. Almost every season they have this like really iconic look. Like last season it was those insane ruffle gowns. You remember those? Like we're seeing that in every editorial. I think they were like possibly the piece of last season. Amazing gowns. This time we have these massive dramatic sort of fur coats. Like they're just like literally eating you up. They're gorgeous. We have these very classic Saint Laurent looks. They're sort of lacy, latexy. We have, of course, some classic suits, because why not? It's less smoking. We have a lot of very 80s vintage, sort of retro-ish looks, and I love the jewelry on this. That's so costumey. It's so just out there, and I really love the sort of this how the smoking is coming back, how it's just sort of coming back. Vaccarello has been on the strong run on the like with Saint Laurent, and this collection only reinforces his vision. It was very sharp, it was very sensual, it was very confident in its identity. Nothing feels forced. Everything just feels like exactly where it needs to be. And the season also marked the 60th anniversary of the smoking. What started like as a radical statement in 1966, it just feels so relevant today. Like, this look is timeless for a reason, and he understands how central Vaccarello understands how central it is to the brand's DNA. The tailoring just looks so luxe. It just looks, just so divine. The cuts is simple, it's effective. The styling just was even more minimal. Like the slick buns, they're just sort of killing it on everyone. They just look gorgeous on everyone. We have these sort of silicone coated lace dresses. We have pencil skirts that just like literally shape you perfectly. And I don't think I'll ever get over these sort of massive coats. It was very sexy. It was very demure in that very sort of dramatic YSL way. Like, this collection just proves how no one like really does sort of this subtle sex appeal like Saint Laurent, and Vaccarello is so good at it. And also, this April marks his anniversary at the house, like for 10 years. It's been a decade since he's at the house, and what a decade it has been, I think. And this collection is such a good roundup of his era at the house as well, and he's just absolutely killing it. Every collection now is so relevant, it's so powerful, it's so fresh, and I think he's definitely one of the strongest creative director and brand duos that we have out there. I think he's just doing amazing. And oh my god, I know what my favorite look here is, and I didn't forget this time, and because I love it so much. It's this coat. I think I might actually kill for this coat. I'm not even kidding. It's just gorgeous. It's so dramatic. It's so Parisian. It's so Saint Laurent. Love it. I love the little sort of flip. It has a little dainty belt. It's just beautiful. I love it. So next we have is Balenciaga. Okay, so I don't think I have anything unfortunately good to say about this collection. And I know I'm just coming off the bat and saying this, but I really don't. It was too, like, if you tell me this is a collection from Balenciaga fall 2017, I'll just believe you. It's so Demna. It's Demna all the way. I don't see any Pier Paolo, which is such a shame because Pier Paolo himself is an icon. His debut for the house felt very confident, it felt very promising. So there was obviously like a lot of curiosity around what he's going to do next. But this time the result was very confusing. Somehow the collection felt like nothing. It felt like he's trying to do too much. He's trying to be edgy, he's trying to be street, he's trying to be Demna, which is like absolutely not needed. And apparently he collaborated with Sam Levinson with like spaces and video screens sort of showing the upcoming season of Euphoria, and Euphoria is a mess already. So I don't know, this collab anyways turned out to be like for nothing. But the idea behind it was to capture a portrait of a generation, but the connection between the sort of cinematic world that they were trying to portray and this sort of like clothes just never landed. It just never made sense. I don't think these clothes had anything to say. I mean, I some of these looks, first of all, it's too done. Balenciaga has already done exactly this. I don't feel these clothes are saying anything. Objectively, yes, they might be good clothes. I mean, this gorge jacket is amazing. This sort of look is so beautifully draped. This is a little Valentino Pierpaolo vibe. But like, there's too much going on here. This is of course a very strong Balenciaga look. If you want to compare it with that sort of aesthetic, these gowns are beautiful. But I think individually, yes, some looks are very pretty, but overall it was struggling to find any cohesiveness. The push and pull between Balenciaga and what it used to be versus the new designer is very evident in this collection. But the vision like really never comes through, and that is what made this collection very underwhelming. And after such a strong debut, it's even more heartbreaking because debut was good. Pierpaolo's debut was actually amazing, and this just left me with more questions about the brand, which is a shame. But okay, time for my favorite look. These gowns are pretty. I love the center one. It's obviously gorgeous. Nice. That's a gorgeous jacket. Even last time Pierre Paolo had this very gorgeous leather burgundy jacket that I just fell in love with. I think I'm gonna choose this look because it has that sort of couture-ish jacket which I like. But I hate the pants. I'm just choosing it for the jackets. I think everything else is just not speaking to me, but I do like that jacket. Okay, now we're moving on to Jean-Paul Gaultier. Oh my god, this was an important collection. I absolutely hated the last JPG collection, and for very good reason, because Duran was just fucking around then. That was just not a good collection. But I guess second time is the charm. It is hard not to look at this sort of collection from the lens of the debut collection that we unfortunately had to witness. The collection felt almost too absurd. It was built for shock value, the last collection. It made you wonder whether it was just like an actual collection or it was just rage bait to sort of give us a half-baked decent collection and just sort of just make us like this more because of how shitty the debut was, or maybe it was just like pressure from the team and the management on how funky can you go with a brand like that. But I think definitely it was definitely more grounded. I think he leaned very heavily into tailoring. There was a lot of unexpected twists along this collection, but I feel it was still interesting. It had that Jean-Paul Gaultier vibe. It had a lot of Duran in it, which I appreciate. Suits were deconstructed, coats were like pinched at the waist, as you can see. The menswear fabrics were made into skirts. There was a lot of corsetry. There were a lot of hybrid pieces. There was a lot going on. These are like classic Duran looks. Come on. But I think the highlight of this collection is definitely the tailoring and the silhouettes. Silhouettes are very good. Duran is good with silhouettes. I can't lie. These sort of pinstripe suits, the sort of structured looks, like the atelier, of course, has like a lot of technical strength. He also bought some of his like very sculptural shapes, and I really loved how he sort of put them together from like a Jean Paul Gaultier lens, because this red look is divine. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous runway look. I think it can translate beautifully into the red carpet. The black one, of course, is amazing too. I think it's more simpler, but this red one just speaks to me. I think it actually might be one of my favorite looks this season. But yes, I think there was an overload of the ideas. Like there were too many ideas, but I do feel it was a step in the right direction. And I do feel that, but I feel that maybe we need to see some more evening wear from Jean Paul Gaultier, because I feel like we see a lot of daywear and tailoring, but I feel we're missing out on the evening wear a bit much. Though what we have is gorgeous. I mean, like I said, these looks are very nice, but I think he can deliver real fashion moments when he wants to. That's the main point. But so again, this just makes me question: was this the strategy all along? The bar was definitely very low for me after the debut, because if I would have seen this after a great collection, it's not. If I look at it completely objectively, it's a okay collection. It just feels good because of how traumatizing the first collection was. I mean, I don't know if that was intentional or not. Regardless, I mean, it is what it is. But this collection did have some strong moments and sort of brings back a little bit of confidence in the designer and sort of maybe reminds us why he was hired. Like, this is a gorgeous look. This is so Jean Paul, and I really love this. I think even this is a really fun look. I really appreciate it. I think I think it just looks really cool. The gown, of course, and like the gown is my favorite, and there's no question about it. This gown is my favorite look from this collection. So yeah. Okay, so now we're moving on to fecal matter. I'm sorry, I just cannot pronounce the French version of the name. It's just beyond me. I'm just gonna call it fecal matter. And this collection was capital D drama. And like, not that any drama happened there. It was just a brilliant show that had like insanely dramatic looks. Really loved it. I mean, it's I know I hate to say this, but it's giving me McQueen. It's giving me what editors might have felt like back in 2005 when they were witnessing a McQueen show. And it might be the strongest show ever, and definitely one of the strongest collections this season. So the designers turned their attention to the world's wealthiest, elitist people, exploring power, privilege, and the strange culture that sort of surrounds the 1%. The show almost unfolded like a performance full of these characters, exaggerated characters that felt glamorous but also almost unsettling. And sometimes it was very obvious, like, look at this sort of like this $100 bills that make up this coat. It's beautiful. And now when we have this sort of very dramatic pink fur look, my heart has this. And oh my god, I'm getting like, I feel like I'm getting an ADHD moment because I'm so distracted. But the makeup here was also amazing. I just had to mention it because of how good it was. Some models were sort of wearing these like dollar bill masks on how like literally money blinds you. Like there was a lot of prosthetic details in the makeup. There was this almost grotesque feeling when you look at makeup looks. The references are very twisted. You can spot these like sort of echoes of the Dior era by Galliano McQueen, like I said. There's also a little bit of Demna's Balenciaga, and I don't mean to like compare it in a way that they are copying it. I just mean they have that sort of energy that these designers took like decades to build, but they as a young brand have managed to sort of communicate that political and social commentary while designing great clothes, which is achievement. Tailoring was sort of sharp, but it was sort of distressed. The dramatic silhouettes, they were so dramatic. Like this pink gown is a dream. This gray one, like amazing. The silhouette on this is divine. Like look at that cut, look at that sleeves, the neckline, the sort of the cutout on the hips. It is almost cartoonish, but it was so haute couture. It was so avant-garde. And an unnamed tech pro also appeared on the runway, but we don't really want to give any credit or visibility to that, hence no photo. If you really want, you might just Google it, but don't. Why do you want to do that? I think that is when the show leaned a little too literal for me, but I think apart from that, very strong collection. Overall impact remains strong, but again, these darted wool dresses have my heart. I think what makes this collection work is the balance between spectacle and actual craftsmanship and technical mastery that they clearly have. Like look at the even the simpler pieces like the sweater or maybe this enormously pleated skirt, which I think is a reference to the Dior new look. I think if this collection is any indication, Fecal Matter is just getting started, trust me. And you see a little bit of Chanel here. I mean, they're definitely referencing to these old school luxury brands, which I do appreciate. And maybe this is Balmain or Valentino. I don't know. This could be Valentino. This could also be Vivienne Westwood. I think I'm overthinking. I'm definitely reaching now. I can just feel myself reaching. But yeah, it's time for my favorite look. And this is very difficult because it's definitely a tie between these two pink looks and also this wool dress. But you know what? I'm gonna choose the pink ball gown because why not? I love it. Okay, so now we're moving on to Alaïa. So this was Peter Muller's last collection for Alaïa. It was a roundup of all his big hits. There was a lot of emotion running through. Ralph Simmons was, hugging and crying throughout the collection, which is the cutest thing ever. I mean, and Peter has had an enormously brilliant run at the brand. He has made delicious clothes that just speak Alaïa. I mean, they speak Alaïa's language so beautifully. It was unreal. And he like really sort of revamped this brand. And for this collection, he chose something more thoughtful instead of like going for like some celebratory spectacle. I think it was definitely more of a recap of his 5 years and a sort of a reflection on what his era meant to him and what he has done for the brand. And also I really love that he sort of celebrated the entire team in this last collection, which is so important. And by the way, he's going to Versace, so I mean that's that. There were no bags, there was no jewelry, there was barely any distractions. It was all about clothes, just clothes and the body wearing them. It was a decision that instantly brought focus to what Alaïa has always done: precision, fit, and the relationship between like fabric and the body, fit and form. Like there were a lot of materials: jersey, viscose, cotton, latex, like literal rocket wool. It was very Alaïa, it was very humbling. It was not a maximalist collection. Like I said, it was a recap, so I think they definitely were trying to honor sort of the brand's identity. And also I think it would be a good transitional collection. And for people who really love Peter Muller's Alaïa, they have a lot to purchase here because I think it serves the customer really well. The loyal customers who have been buying Alaïa, who really love his work, and he does have a cult following, it's heaven for them. And I really appreciate how he thought of that, because it's very easy to create like a new dramatic collection, but you have to think of the consumers, which he did. I really appreciate that. The little details were really pretty. I mean, look at these gowns, they just move with the body, they're beautiful. The little rib detail, the little coats here, the sort of corset latex crocodile thing here, little sort of you can see the little overlay here. As a goodbye, it felt very honest, it felt very complete. It's definitely been a very important chapter for the brand. I think Peter is going to do an insane number of amazing things, as he should. He's a brilliant designer. He's going to go to Versace, he's going to kill it there. But I think for Alaïa, this was a really turning point for Alaïa, because he like really brought the collection brand back to the zeitgeist. Like people like care about Alaïa now. Alaïa was sort of a dinosaur brand, but he like really is just sort of made it fresh, relevant, young. And I think this collection was just a beautiful touch to that. Okay, so time for my favorite look. Shit. I think I'm gonna choose maybe this red dress. It's a statement, it's a classic, it just fits beautifully. I love it. So I'm just gonna go with that. The red is beautiful. I think even these are gorgeous, but I think I love a full sleeve moment, so I'll choose it. Okay, so now we're talking about Laurent, and Peter Copping really delivered this season. There was something very cinematic about Laurent. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Peter leaned into this elegance of 1920s and 1930s, and the result was very vintage chic. It was not very costume-like. It was very mysterious in a way. The show opened with like a tailoring movement that sort of nodded to Laurent's menswear history. Structured coats, coat dresses, skirts came in like traditional fabrics, often cinched at the waist to soften the masculine influence. Some pieces had like an asymmetrical draping, at the hem that added like some movement to it, which I really love. And once the dresses arrived, the collection like really found its rhythm. Coping presented like a series of draped, elongated silhouettes that felt very dramatic, that felt very elegant. This like black dress with like a high neck and the draping at the hip immediately stood out. The styling pushed the mood further. There were like tall boots, heavy stoles, massively oversized, super chic, glamorous hats. I mean, these hats are amazing. They remind me a lot of those like Vietnamese hats that we see, those like Vietnamese straw hats. Almost like looks like a wardrobe of a like super cool, super stylish femme fatale villain in like an old black and white movie. The kind of character who just like instantly controls the room as she enters it, who just like immediately is like, look at me. She doesn't need to say it, she just is. Even when the silhouettes became more dramatic, they never felt like overdone. They just felt organic in a way because of how minimal everything else was. The balance between like the structure and the fluidity of the collection, like just I think really saved this collection. Copying clearly understand what Laurent stands for, and his strength in dressmaking without any sort of frills and fuss, like really sort of is refreshing to look at. Just like good craftsmanship, beautiful fabrics, and dresses that like you feel like you want to wear them. So I think it was a really strong collection. My favorite look I know is this one. It's I know the most dramatic look of the collection, but I fell in love with the fringe, sequined fringes the minute I saw it. I love the little drapey earrings. I love the hat. It's just such a moment. This look, I love it. I love that it's not black. I love that it is like really dark olive. It just really stands out. It's a beautiful look. Okay, so next we have Tom Ford. Hader Ackerman has been killing it at the brand. His latest collection was like corporate dressing turned like dangerous. The opening looks immediately set the tone. Black and white dominated the runway with like sharp tailoring, clean silhouettes that felt very office coded, but in like a grown up Tom Ford way, not in like a boring like office siren way. This like boardroom and 9 to 5 and late night power energy. Ackerman started with like strong tailoring, double breasted suits, crisp shirts, structured jackets. They just gave like a collection of backbone to stand on, and then he just built upon that into like really sexy clothes. We saw only two evening wear like gowns, and they just I think that was all we needed because these gowns are beautiful. I mean, look at the details on the chest here. The little frills just sort of it looks like a plant that is growing, and the neckline here again beautifully done. And I think sometimes just less is more, and this collection is proof. Look at these little vest details. It's gorgeous. The coats, this little sort of color moment. It's giving like 60s. This leather suit. I mean, if I wear this leather suit to work, I'd probably like when I become like a CEO of some company, I'm probably gonna wear it. It's so badass. These looks are apparently being sold as glass effect something, which is it's just unfortunate, but again, nevertheless, good looks. It does look surprisingly chic and sleek. It can lean very easily towards looking gimmicky, but I love how the sheer layers are sort of revealing the insides. It's kind of cool. I think this vest is also really fun. This coat is giving Cruella, and I love it for that. And this sort of detail, like here, this sort of little thong-ish belt detail, really fun. I think there were a lot of contrasts in this collection, which sort of keep breaking up the uniformity of the corporate vibe that the collection is going for, and I think which really helps with the collection. Also introduces dark denim for the brand, and that does look really chic. I mean, Tom Ford jeans. I mean, why not? I think evening wear, where like I said, it was minimal. I think like Ackerman is like really loosening the formality just a little bit without losing the brand's signature sort of sex appeal and polish. Ackerman is seeming increasingly comfortable inside the Tom Ford universe. Super sexy, doesn't try too hard, just always chic, always put together, always just perfection. And we love him for that. My favorite look here is a challenge, and I know I say it for almost every collection, but how do we choose? Oh shit, I do want to choose this one. It's pretty good. But I do love this. I mean, that is very hot. But somehow this feels so much more sensual than like the gown. I think I'm gonna go with the leather. It's actually not my favorite color. I particularly don't like this color, but the suit is perfection. It's leather, it's a skirt suit, it's leather. The jacket gives like a bomber jacket. The matching gloves just seal it for me, so I'm gonna go with this one. Okay, so now we're moving on to Lacoste, and this was surprisingly one of the coolest collections this season. I know I'm shocked to say this, and I know you're shocked to hear it, but this collection had a lot of cool things going on. It was very sporty, obviously. I loved it. It was a very good blend of what the brand is and how they are sort of translating that into a more high fashion audience. And I think They just had like a very strong blend of what's sporty and what sort of avant-garde looks can look like. And also this reminds me of how amazing Ferrari is doing, because both are non-conventional, non-fashion brands, but they've managed to put out like some really good collections. And Onitsuka Tiger in Milan was also a good one. So I'm just like, fashion houses are like, some fashion houses are struggling to put out good collections because I think they have more expectations. I get that point, but these non-fashion brands are absolutely killing it. And I know Lacoste makes clothes, but I just mean they're not like fashion. But I think this was a really good collection. The sort of blending this sort of tennis heritage that they have with the sort of streetwear cool, and it's designed by Pelagia Colo. I am extremely sorry. I'm just gonna call it Pelagia, or it's Pelagia. I don't know, Pelagia. I think, yeah. I think this was definitely his underdog moment. I think it was like shining in the sun moment for him because it was a really strong collection. It just sort of went unnoticed and underrated, but I think it had like a really strong energy to it. It was definitely a standard of the Paris Fashion Week, which is saying something because you're competing with some of the biggest luxury brands out there. He continues to explore Lacoste's tennis roots, this time looking back at this like rain-soaked match played by the founder in 1923. Pretty solid reference, and I love how specific the reference is, and I love how it's sort of showing up in his work. I mean, the sort of raincoats, sort of protectiveness, the sort of big silhouettes because you're playing in the rain, of course. These sort of wind cheater jackets. I think the reference makes sense, which is so because luxury brands will now write any chat GPT as press note and it won't make sense. But I love how specific this is. This sort of setting naturally brought in very strong outerwear pieces, very strong weather ready pieces, and the looks like really are fun because they have these like gorgeous skirts flowing about, they have these like wind cheaters. One of the most interesting moments came early in the show with a hybrid piece that combined like an oversized track jacket with a pleated tennis skirt. Like I just said, the silhouette had like a slightly dropped waist, which again is a beautiful reference to the 1920s because of course flapper era. The sense of sort of vintage influence ran throughout the collection, but it never felt heavy or nostalgic. It just felt very organic. It just blended with the clothes while keeping its cool factor. Growing up around 1980s sportswear culture in Queens clearly shaped our approach to what sportswear should look like. That influence came through in sort of relaxed tracksuits, these oversized polos, a lot of roomy outerwear. There were a lot of smart plays on proportion. I think proportion was definitely the keyword of this collection. Proportion and silhouette. Like, look at these massive polo tees. They look insane. They're so New York. They're so London at the same time. I really love how approachable they feel, but also how they like really stand out. I mean, if a person is wearing that in their outfit, it's gonna stand out, but it's just gonna feel like just a much more cooler version of something you would wear every day. And the accessories were really fun too. Oh my god, they had these gorgeous tennis skirted bags. My god. So I don't know if you can see it, but they had these sort of bags with this sort of frill pleated tennis skirt vibe. Cutest bags of the season. Definitely the cutest bags. I love how tennis is everywhere. Like she like really went deep in that whole tennis angle and I love that. And she really respected the brand's heritage and the thing that she was inspired by, which is so rare. I think the result was strong, and I just feel that this collection like really put the brand on map again, or for the first time. I don't know, but it definitely put it on the map, which I appreciate. I think that's a strong feat for a designer. Okay, so now time to find my favorite look, and I know which one it is. It's this one. I think I could never choose between these two, but I think I'm gonna go with this because it's just how effortless it feels. Like that jacket over this sort of skirt. I love it. And I forgot to say about how amazing the color palette here is. It's pretty good. And these closing looks are also brilliant. I love this little green moment that they have going on. Pretty good. So now we're moving on to Nina Ricci. A lot of people hated on this. And by the way, this was designed by Harris Reed, who has now left the brand. But this was, I think, a very strong closing collection. I think I always sort of liked his era at Nina. I think he just had a penchant for like a dramatic, I think, which fit in really well with the brand. I think he definitely put out some good collections. I think definitely it lacked cohesiveness, partly because Cyrus Reed himself is such a young designer and his work for his namesake label is doing pretty well. Very dramatic, very over the top, but I think still good. And I think he could have really bought something. So I don't know why, but I think commercial factors do come to play on this. I think it was a very strong collection. I mean, this look is so beautifully layered, chic. It's so vintage. It's so almost French-ish. I think what he wanted to convey with this collection is the idea of how Marie Antoinette goes to Glastonbury. It sounds very chaotic, but it actually translated pretty well on the runway. Like, you see these like soft pastels and this sort of very grungy look, but it's done with this very luxurious sort of sheen fabric. I think very good touch again with these sort of ruffled vintage blouses, but these animal print skirts. There's this one particular look I think which just sums this collection perfectly, is this beautiful suit, the little ruffles, the fur moment. I think it's the print is giving like animal, like very 80s Glastonbury vibe. The suiting, the little ruffles, the choker. I think it's the brilliant look, sums up the collection beautifully. The designer took like classic 18th century silhouettes like panniers, corsetry, crinoline shapes and gave them a more grounded, playful twist. It felt theatrical, but it also felt very self-aware. There was a lot happening visually. I won't say that it was a very cohesive collection. I think that he's trying to do too much, but I think some looks capture that essence very beautifully. I mean, again, this look is divine. The color combination beautiful. The fur is used to perfection. I love how the blue that is seeping through between the mustard sort of matches the fur. Little necklace, again very music fest vibe, but the fabrics, the brocade-ish fabrics, again give a very Parisian old school conservative vibe. There were like floral, there was animal prints, there were velvet, there were like, you know, cheetah print. There was so much going on, and I get how that can be distracting, but I would love to be distracted by this jacket. Is perfection. The blue, the cut, the double lapel, beautiful. He also put a lot from Nina Ricci's archives. The double collar jacket, like I said, references a lot of the work from the 1950s. Some looks did lean to like a very heavy costume territory, especially the more exaggerated looks, like maybe this one, or maybe this one is definitely a big no. I think this one is trying too hard. It's when he's trying to be minimal, when he's speaking the loudest. I mean, look at this. The shape is beautiful, the little sort of corset, but done in like done on like a cashmere sweater. Amazing. The little skirt, the sort of ruffled skirt, the drapey, it's perfect for a fest, right? And accessories are pretty fun. The shoes are themselves are pretty fun because you have these sort of buckles, but you have like an animal print, so it like really sort of brings these two worlds together. And I think this collection does succeed pretty much to blend this weird aristocratic drama and festival energy. And I think Harris Reed did a good job at the brand altogether. And I think I was a little disappointed. I think a lot of people were celebrating it, but I think I was a little sad. But well, it is what it is. But at least we got a good clothing collection out of it. My favorite look is definitely this one. I just cannot stop looking at it. I do love it, and I think it's a good one. So yeah. Okay, so next we have Rabanne. So Julian Dosena's Rabanne felt energetic, textured, slightly rebellious. The styling stood out immediately. There was a sort of playful spirit running through the show, and many of the looks felt very easy to imagine in wardrobes. It was a kind of collection where different people pieces could appeal to a different people. Like, it was very democratic in that sense. It was very approachable. The starting point came from these 1940s tea dresses that Dosena found while exploring markets and shops in London. Those differences appeared throughout the collection, but were handled in a more looser, modern way rather than leaning too heavily into the nostalgia part of it. The soft silhouettes of those dresses were layered with chunky knit sweaters paired with oversized plaid jackets, sometimes transformed with like fringe and this metallic mesh. Texture, of course, played a huge role. There was a lot of sequin crystal chainmail, all the Rabanne classics, a lot of fur trims. I'm a sucker for fur trims. If you give me an outfit with a fur trim, I'm gonna love it regardless. Jacquard knits, of course. These contrasts sort of created this like subtle punk attitude without losing any of the femininity that Rabanne is pretty good at delivering. Although I do feel some looks were overstyled, but I mean, just when you see a skirt like that, you just forget all the criticisms. And this fur and this brooch, it's perfection. It's so Rabanne. Again, this one, the top, the double layered, you know, top, beautiful, the little bows here, the little fringe here. I mean, Desena has been doing great work at Rabanne, and this collection is just an add-on to his, you know, brilliance. I mean, look at this little over, like he's overdoing it, and it looks amazing. I think he's one of the few designers who can like go so maximalist and still make it look good. At its core, the collection explored a vision of femininity that felt real, that felt slightly imperfect, with like the overstyling and everything. But Dosana like seemed interested in how women actually dress, mixing pieces from here and there rather than just like following one look. And I really feel Rabanne is the kind of brand that can offer like really solid statement pieces to add to a woman's wardrobe, and this collection succeeds at that perfectly. And oh my god, time for my favorite look. Shit. Okay, this one's pretty good, but I am missing the shimmer of it. You know what? Just gonna have to choose this one. Something about this just speaks to me. I love it. The skirt is beautiful. I love the little lace peeking out. The fur wrap top, beautiful. The brooch, I love a dangling thing, and it's just pretty cute. So I love it. Next, we're moving on to is Mugler. Okay, so Mugler has had a complete revamp. So Casey Carabello was doing like these very sexy bodysuits and very these form-fitting, just very close to the body, these like extremely sensual but not vulgar looks. He was doing amazing. Not that it's not doing amazing now, it's just a different direction. So Miguel, who's joined the brand last season, yes, this is his second collection. Titled this collection The Commander. He focused on one of the most recognizable ideas that the house has pioneered, which is power dressing. It's part two of his trilogy, which is called Trilogy of Glorified Cliches. Actually, that's a great name. I'm not kidding. That's a really fun name. Thank God it's not something cringe. And I love how on the nose it is, because yes, some of these looks are very cliche to what one would expect Mugler to look like. It's definitely very 80s. Mugler has leaned into a very strong 80s energy, the power shoulders. It does look like a much more brighter version of what we saw at Balmain. But I think it's an interesting direction. It's definitely a 180 from what we saw, and I think definitely needs more refinement. It needs more expansion. I think this one silhouette is too restrictive for a brand like Mugler. Has an immense library of just historical looks. Like they are looks that have cemented and sort of made fashion history. So I feel that there's a lot to do here, but I think this was just a very specific angle of what the brand is. The inspiration list here was by Joan of Arc, John Crawford, military uniforms, corporate dressing from the 80s, power dressing, even references to like Bauhaus geometry and Art Deco architecture. You can see the references very clearly in the sort of prints that he has used, the military jackets, like with this look, maybe the references are speaking clearly. I appreciate that. I think he's very obvious about his references, and that's why it's called like glorified cliches. Broad shoulders were everywhere. I think a little too much. I know it's playing into the joke, but it's just too much. At times, it just feels like flipping through like an 80s catalog, like an 80s like Sears or whatever was trending at the time catalog. The clothes themselves were beautifully made. The craftsmanship is never at question here. It just looks beautiful. Like this look is styled so perfectly. I love the blue gloves. I love the blue bag. The color is divine. This little color skirt peeking out, the looks are very good, but I just feel it feels too repetitive, and I don't know how much it speaks to a modern consumer. I think it speaks to a certain section of consumer, even the younger audience, but I don't know how broad it is commercially, which I think may be a problem in the long run. I think they would definitely need to sort of expand more into outerwear or maybe more basics or whatever, but I think it's definitely a strong direction for the brand to approach. But let's see how much they can milk it, because how many broad shoulder looks they're going to put out. I do appreciate the little moments of playfulness. I mean, this pink look is like, the number of pockets on here are insane, and I love how he like leaned heavy into that military approach, and I love this pop of color here. This blue here, the matching bracelet, the texture here is delicious. The corset here, amazing craftsmanship. These bodysuits are again actually pretty fun. This coat and this fur dress is divine. It's the perfect cocktail piece. It's the perfect evening wear look. The fur is just blending in. There's this little foxtail moment here, the little black over the chest. Beautiful. I think, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you, favorite look from this collection, this dress. I know it's actually, I think, the only evening wear look. No, it's definitely the only fur look. It's not a broad shoulder look, but I think I love it. It's just a beautiful gown. I think this is probably what we need to see more of from him. Like Mugler is usually associated with something more outrageous, sexy, dramatic, and here the energy was very clearly restrained. And this definitely, like I said, captured a part of Mugler's DNA, but I think we need more. But I think overall a good collection. Okay, so now we're moving on to Chloe. Chloe was amazing this season. It was dreamy. It had this sort of folksy energy to it. And the beauty looks, we need to talk about the beauty looks in a second. The collection had this like dreamy, Chloe energy. It never slipped into something that was like overly delicate or fragile. Instead, it just felt very confident, romantic. Shamina sort of drew this inspiration from these like folk traditions and community craft, looking at these historical Dutch costumes and the idea of garments passed through generations. But visually, the runway felt closer to its late poetic 70s world, like that hippie culture world. Think like the spirit of Joni Mitchell or the theatrical femininity of Kate Bush, the mixed with like these echoes of like oops. Think of like the spirit of like Joni Mitchell and this theatrical femininity of think of like the theatrical femininity of Kate Bush or like Joni Mitchell's spirit mixed with like these echoes of Karl Lagerfeld's past work for the house. The result was nostalgic, but it was still fresh. The silhouettes were like flowing and layered, often built on tiered and ruffled skirts. Absolutely gorgeous. They moved beautifully on the runway. Many looks featured like these airy dresses, muslin dresses, faded checks, soft floral prints that gave the collection its like prairie inspired mood. Some standout pieces were these solid colored floaty gowns. I mean, just look at these. Very dreamy. Like they just became the heroes of the show. They felt effortless. Like, look at this white one, it's divine. Layering played a huge role here. Sweeping capes, these sort of oversized outerwear, structured jackets, as we can see here, were placed, and these massive skirts, these massive coats, they just created like this strong contrast between this strong outerwear between and these like sort of flowy dresses. The styling elevated like that was like classic 70s hair, which I love. Sort of this like wild, curly, chic hair. Beauty looks were very minimal, they were very cute, they were very dramatic, and they just looked so. I think they were definitely one of the best beauty looks in this season. Embroidery, handwork details highlighted the human side of this collection, something Jamina seems very interested in protected, and especially in the space of like speed and technology. What made work what the collection felt very romantic but powerful. These were not like fragile prairie girls or fragile women who were like wearing dresses. They were like strong women and they just looked completely in control. I mean, these gingham gowns absolutely divine. The styling on this beautiful. These skirts are a must have. I think Shavina like really understands the Chloe women really well. Look at these gowns. These are divine. These sort of retro-ish glasses, these sort of cute little bags, these sort of very funky boho jewelry. I think almost every dress in this collection is a girl's dream, and I really love her for making girls dream. I mean, we need more dreamy dresses because why not? And I don't mean like gowns, I just mean like gorgeous dresses you want to wear every day. So, time for my favorite look. And this was a difficult because I love these three so much. I do lean towards a brighter color, but I also love the styling on this. But if I were to ever wear something, I think it would definitely be shit. It would be the blue one. I'm actually surprised that I chose the blue one for a lot of reasons. I thought it would be red, but I love a neckline, more the off shoulder neckline. But blue is definitely a better color for me than green. I love it. In the green is gorgeous. I love how the green has checks, but it's so subtle because I think here the check is too obvious and I don't think I can pull it off. So, oh my gosh, should I just switch to green? Okay, who cares? Blue it is. But I think, yeah. Now we're gonna move on to Dior. My god. I have been sort of on the edge about Jonathan Anderson and Dior, but this collection has made me change my mind, and I'm very, very happy he has bloomed into Dior. This Dior collection was probably one of the best Dior collections in recent history. Anderson like made Dior his own fucking bitch with this collection. This was the moment. Set inside this greenhouse with the Tuileries garden with water lilies floating on the pond. It was beautiful. It was all about lilies and nature. The clothes followed the same vibe. They were light, they were elegant, they were a little dreamy. Something you would just want to wander a garden around in, or maybe the streets of Paris in, or maybe like literally any street in the world because you're wearing Dior. This was probably the collection of the season. It was divine. It was such a surprise to see this collection. I don't mean surprise because his couture collection was also amazing, but his ready to wear was just not hitting it for me. This collection just had everything, and this opening look, my god, it's a perfect look. There's like really nothing to say. The little skirt, the little drape, the little detailed top, beautiful. Anderson like really leaned into Dior's history, but like handled it with like this like relaxed confidence. The bar jacket appeared early on and softened into this like grey knit cardigan, like we saw here. And those like loose floating skirts became like the highlight of the show. The balance between like the structure and softness, which I know is a very overused phrase in fashion, but it's so difficult to achieve, and he's really done that. I mean, look at these sort of flower moments. here. This little like fur trim, like this soft fur trim that's just flying across these denim with embellishments, these sort of heavily layered ruffled skirts. It's gorgeous. It's a piece that you would save all your life. Anderson, of course, lived a little bit of himself in this collection. Like we saw the embroidered jeans, that's very Anderson. These sort of chill trousers are very him. Even I feel this coat is very him. It can be Dior, but this is Anderson to his max, and it's a gorgeous coat. It's like a house coat that you can wear outside. Because why not? This was again a very standout look. I love the little drape here, how the neck sort of has this drape and it's just falling onto the other side. I love the little feather trims. His debut definitely raised questions for me, but I think this collection answered every doubt that one could have. Beautiful collection. These pants, again, beautifully done. The bags, of course, were also pretty strong. He's been like really pushing this bag, and this collection did the same. And oh my god, I need to show you the heels. And I'm pretty sure you've seen, everyone has seen on this planet has seen these heels, but these heels are the moment of the season. Shoe of the season, just beautiful. These heels were heavenly. The lily heels, they're burned in my memory. Coming to my favorite look, it has to be this one. This look is probably one of the best sort of opening looks of all time. I'm not even kidding, I'm not exaggerating. It is. It's really divine. The skirt, the jacket, the little bar moment. I love how minimal it is. I love how well referenced it is. It's beautiful. It's definitely one of the best looks of the season. Okay, so now we're gonna do Givenchy. Sara Burton has been killing it at Givenchy. I think Sara Burton can put out a good collection anywhere she goes. She's just a brilliant designer. I will never ever get over her era at Givenchy. Her Givenchy couture collections were is what couture should be. But okay, let's talk about this collection. I think after a couple of seasons, after establishing her house goals and settling herself in, this collection comes across as far more instinctive and confident by Burton. You can feel the freedom in the clothes. The silhouettes were very strong, the shapes were striking. The whole collection sort of carried a sense of clarity of what Burton wants Givenchy to be. One of the standout things here is the way that she handled like the silhouettes. The tailoring remains central to her vision, but I feel that she like really expanded it, and she's exploring a lot of things. I will say that it is lacking a little bit of cohesion, visual cohesion, but the energy I think just remains consistent across. It is definitely one of her more expressive and obvious works. I think it definitely has a sense of fun, humor, and punk to it. I think, but she also clearly understands of about women. She, of course, she understands women. That's why we need more women designers. She understands what women actually want to wear, and that just comes across in these looks so beautifully. Little scarf, the skirt. Oh my God, this little yellow number. And at the same time, when we talk about wearability and commerciality, the collection did open some into something more playful and unexpected. I definitely did not expect this. The color palette was wild. I think wild is the only way I can define it. There were a lot of animal prints, which was again a shock. Like that's not something that you would generally expect from Burton. But still nothing felt chaotic. It just felt like Burton just trying a lot of things, because she has this sort of she's such a skilled hand that she just has this sort of effervescence and essence to each look that just sort of ties it together. There were a lot of statement collections in this. There were a lot of statement collections in this look. Definitely, this look is divine. The leather, all leather look. What made this show work so well for me was how personal it felt. She spoke about dressing for many kinds of women, and that idea really comes through because there's so much going on here. The casting mixed models with like artists, writers, reinforcing that Givenchy is not just one person. More than anything, I think this collection like solidifies how perfect Burton is for Givenchy. The signatures are becoming clear, and the clothes feel very strong, confident, and very much her own. Time for my favorite look. Fuck, I know which one it is. It's this leather piece. There's a bow, there's a leather set, there's a gorgeous leather bag. Oh my god, that model has a cool tattoo, which I again love. The heels are perfect. It's a perfect look. It's so Givenchy, it's so chic, it's so Parisian, and it's so easy to style. You can wear this individually everywhere and anywhere. Why not? It's beautiful. So that was all about Paris Fashion Week. Unfortunately, I actually recorded a couple of more collections and my thoughts on them, but I accidentally deleted them, so I had to like re-record this outro again as well. But I think like skippable collections, if I'm being honest. But I think this is a great season. I think last season itself was such a historic season because he had all these like debuts, designer debuts, and this season like really built upon that beautifully. And I think there were a lot of collections to love and a lot of collections where we could sort of see where the fashion industry is going forward. But I think this was a great season, and it was really fun for me to cover, even though I was slightly late. Sorry about that. Gonna be definitely on time next time. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Do let me know your thoughts and your favorite collection from Paris Fashion Week Fall 26.